Inflation has gone up. It's at 3% now, up from 2% in April when the tariffs were imposed.
No. They weren't. So inflation hasn't gone up. We're having Thanksgiving week. This will be the lowest cost for a Thanksgiving dinner in 4 years. Turkey prices are down 16%. Oh, we are doing our 19th sanctions package. In my mind, Kristen, if you're going to do something 19 times, you failed.
Nagging liberal Karen or liberal Kristen Welker of Meet the Press was not ready for our main man, Scott Bessent, the Treasury Secretary in the Trump administration, because he's a veteran on these programs and he goes after these liberal Karens almost every time they lie to him. It's so fun to watch. And you know he did good when he gives you that smirk little smile right there. It's Sean Daniel here, filming early in the morning from New Zealand. Got my New Zealand shirt on, just moved here for the year. I'm surprised to see how many of you guys are so supportive and excited for me, and also how there is some of you who are really mad that I'm outside the U.S. While the U.S. is the greatest country on earth, there's also other places in the world you can explore. Don't know what that's all about. For those of you supporting, thank you so much. Now let's get into the video.
And joining me now is Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent. Secretary Bessent, welcome back to Meet the Press.
Chris, good to be with you today.
It's great to have you here in person. Thank you for being here. I want to start right there on the discussion of affordability. You just heard Vice President J.D. Vance ask people to have, quote, a little bit of patience with the administration. Let me ask you, Mr. Secretary, how long do Americans need to be patient? How long do they have to wait for the cost of living to come down?
Well, Kristen, in March of 2024, I wrote a piece and I talked about the 3 I's that were killing Americans: immigration, interest rates, and inflation. President's closed the border and the mass immigration is gone. And that was putting, a lot of the immigration was putting upward pressure on housing, downward pressure on wages. Interest rates are down. And now we are starting to see the affordability. The prices get better. We had a very big October for home sales. Energy prices, gasoline is down. We saw, we believe healthcare is going to come down. We will see an announcement this coming week on that. And so across the board, prices are starting to come down. We're having Thanksgiving week. This will be the lowest cost for a Thanksgiving dinner in 4 years. Turkey prices are down 16%.
And yet some prices are going up, of course.
Of course. Some prices are going up. Got to focus on that, right, Kristen?
Prices increasing on staples like coffee, bananas, bacon. Inflation has gone up. It's at 3% now, up from 2% in April when the tariffs were imposed.
No. They weren't. So inflation hasn't gone up. And Kristen, the one thing that we're not going to do is do what the Biden administration did and tell the American people they don't know how they feel. They are traumatized, and over the Biden inflation, we have slowed inflation, and we are working very hard to bring it down. Kristen, I can tell you that the Council on Economic Advisors has a study. You know the best way to bring your inflation rate down? Move from a blue state to a red state. Blue state inflation is 0.5% higher, and that is because they don't deregulate, they keep prices up, energy is higher.
Just according to the consumer prices, inflation was at 2.3% back in April. In September, 3%. But let me ask you about tariffs, because there's this big announcement on tariffs.
Hit the like button for Scott Bessent. We love having him on here.
You were last on this program. The administration announced it was rolling back tariffs on more than 200 food products. You have said recently that you think tariffs help consumers. If tariffs help consumers, why is the administration rolling them back?
Well, first of all, Kristen, if you look at the data, that imported goods, the inflation has actually been flat. Inflation is up because of the service economy and services, so that has nothing to do with tariffs. And many of the food items where the inflation is coming down, the USTR has been working very hard on trade deals, and the trade deals that have been in the works for 6 or 8 months coincide with many Latin American, Central American countries where the foodstuffs you just named come from.
Which you have to remember, like Kevin Hassett, the other guy, talked about in last week's video, that one reason that the beef prices are higher is because we have a much more strict border, and we have issues in Mexico going on. They have a bunch of protests, but that's not the point. The point is we have a stricter border and less people can come across in as an efficient of a time. They also had an outbreak of, I don't remember exactly what he said. I think a pest outbreak, he said. Sorry, guys. Early morning again for this Sunday marathon. Did not sleep well last night. So with the strictness that's going on at the southern border, you have less supply. They can come in with meat or beef, and they get a lot of beef from Mexico, the United States does. So then the prices get ramped up, which nobody in the media will tell you that.
Isn't the fact that you're rolling back tariffs an admission that ultimately they do drive up prices for consumers?
Kristen, how much does your arm weigh?
That I do not know.
Exactly, but you know how much you weigh. You get on the scale every morning. Inflation is a composite number, and we look at everything. So we try to push down the things we can control. And as I said, that we are working on the energy prices are down, and everything flows from that. And I think we're going to see these other prices come down. And again, many of these goods were part of trade deals with countries that have been in the works for months.
Sure, very quickly, come down in a matter of weeks, months?
Sorry?
Weeks or months? You said the prices will come down in weeks or months?
Some are going to come down in weeks, some are going to come down in months. We just had in terms of affordability, we just had the best month in the housing market due to affordability, due to increased supply in October, best October in 3 years, best month since February.
But we still need those interest rates to go down. Or like Gary said in my recent video, stop putting out misinformation. The dollar's going down because Jerome Powell refuses to lower interest rates while the rest of the world has lowered their interest rates. This is what is hurting the dollar. It's true that Jerome Powell will not fully lower interest rates like we've seen in other parts of the world, but that's not the only thing that influences the dollar, Gary. But it is a big deal that we need something fixed on that. We need the interest rates to be basically equal with the other parts of the world, and they just do not want to lower it. It has lowered a bit, but we know that Trump wants it lower.
You said earlier this month, I'm going to quote you, quote, I think there are sectors of the economy that are in a recession. Kevin Hassett, director of the National Economic Council, said, quote, we're starting to see pockets of the economy that look like they might be in a recession. Which parts of the economy do you believe have dipped into a recession?
Well, clearly housing has been struggling, and so interest rate sensitive sectors have been in a recession. And the other thing that was not helpful, Kristen, was the longest government shutdown in history. It was 1.5% hit to GDP. The 9,500 flights canceled. And the Democrats didn't care that they hurt the American economy. Anything to stop Donald Trump.
Well, big picture, is the country at risk, the entire country at risk of being in a recession?
No, I am very confident about 2026 because what we are going to see is the president has done peace deals, tax deals, and trade deals, the one big beautiful bill. And to go back to affordability has two components. So it's price of goods and real incomes. So under the one big beautiful bill, especially for working Americans, no tax on tips, no tax on overtime, no tax on Social Security, auto deductibility and loans for American cars. That's all kicking in. Americans have not changed their withholding, so we're going to see substantial refunds to working families in the first quarter of 2026. Americans will change their withholding, and they will get an increase in real income. The trade deals that we've done, I was just at my hometown, Charleston, South Carolina. Boeing is expanding their Dreamliner plant, 1,000 new jobs, and I think we're going to see these plant openings every week. I am very, very optimistic on 2026. We have set the table for a very strong, non-inflationary growth economy.
It could really be a big few years for the economy in the United States, especially with the manufacturing. Trump has been trying to get back in the U.S., which has been a big part of his tariff strategy. We haven't been able to see these different production lines and manufacturing plants get fully just built and organized and recreated and restructured because it takes time. So it'll be interesting to see just how much that helps the economy But if we could really get those interest rates down, you get a lot more things moving. But we do know, just like what happened in 2020, the Democrats that were really all excited that COVID happened because then there was a nab they could throw, a targeted arrow they could throw at Trump about how bad the economy was doing. Well, it's the same with a Trump victory with the economy. They do not want that. Because you remember, in the Joe Biden-Trump round one of debates for the presidential election in 2020, that was the big thing they nailed him on. Under you, the economy's gone down. They kept promulgating that type of lie, or really that badly framed statement. And if they did that on repeat, it shows you how much they really don't want a Trump win. So therefore, how much does their desire to not have Trump win anything, how does that influence the Fed to not lower interest rates? Because if Trump had that win on his record, interest rates all at an all-time low, or at a low and for a big low for the last 10 years, there's no way they would let that happen or want that to happen.
Let me ask you about the big news on the world stage. You just talked about the president's peace deals. Let's talk about Ukraine. U.S. lawmakers on both sides of the aisle, Ukrainian officials who I've spoken to, say the peace plan for Russia and Ukraine, as written, only benefits Russia. Let me ask you simply, Mr. Secretary, was this 28-point plan written by Russia?
I have no information on that, Kristen, but I can tell you I am the highest-ranking U.S. official to have visited Ukraine. I went last February. And when I went last February, I went with an economic cooperation agreement between the U.S. and Ukraine. President Zelensky pushed back against it. The same people you're just talking about there pushed back against it. Mainstream media pushed back against it. You know what? We did it 3 months later, and now it is the centerpiece for the Ukrainian economy that this agreement is even funding military plants for the very innovative military sector in the Ukraine. So, I would be very careful on conventional wisdom. And to go back to your question, it is a peace negotiation.
Well, okay, to that point, Republican Senator Mike Rounds, who was briefed by Secretary Rubio, came out and he said this, quote, "It's not our peace plan. It looked more like it was written in Russian to begin with." Secretary Rubio says the U.S. did write the plan, but regardless of who wrote it, U.S. lawmakers are concerned that it benefits Russia over Ukraine. Is the administration, is President Trump planning to pressure Ukraine to accept this deal?
Look, at the end of the day, it's going to be a decision with the Ukrainians. President Trump is a president of peace. This war would not have started. There was no Ukrainian territory taken anytime that he's been in office. Everything else, Crimea and this move, have been when President Trump wasn't there. President Trump has put more pressure on the Russian Federation with economic sanctions. The laggards here are the Europeans. The Europeans tell me, we are doing our 19th sanctions package. In my mind, Kristen, if you're going to do something 19 times, you failed. Instead, President Trump moved forward with a bold initiative that the Europeans would not follow us on. He put a 25% tariff on India because they were buying Russian oil. The Russian oil going in to the Indian refineries, guess who was buying that? The Europeans. They are funding the war on themselves. President Trump, 2 weeks ago, sanctioned Rosneft and Lukoil, the two biggest Russian oil companies, and the price of Russian oil has collapsed.
Very quickly, is the Thanksgiving deadline set by President Trump a firm deadline?
I haven't spoken to him about it, but I am confident that the peace process is moving forward.
You see how quickly they forget about Trump putting the sanctions on the Russian government? And now, Kristen Welker, everyone else in the media, they just forget about when Trump does something good. And they immediately are on the next thing. This deal is too favorable of Russia. You guys aren't really supporting Ukraine. Scott's like, hold on. Their whole military thing is possible in large part because of us. What are you talking about? We're one of the biggest supporters of the Ukrainian resistance against Russia right now. And even when he does such a big move like the sanctions, they just forget about it. It's so disingenuous. And you really have to stay sharp because it's easy if you just watch these shows to forget about some of the things he's doing or has done, because they blow by his victories so quickly, or good things he's done so quickly. It's tough to keep track of, actually.
I haven't spoken to him about it, but I am confident that the peace process is moving forward.
Okay, let me ask you about another topic this week that got a lot of attention. 6 congressional Democrats released a video with a message to service members and intelligence officials. Take a look.
The threats to our Constitution aren't just coming from abroad, but from right here at home.
Our laws are clear. You can refuse illegal orders.
You can refuse illegal orders.
You must refuse illegal orders.
President Trump accused these lawmakers of, quote, seditious behavior punishable by death. Press Secretary Caroline Leavitt said that every order President Trump gives is lawful. Are you confident that every order that President Trump gives is lawful, Mr. Secretary?
Kristen, what I am confident of is that this was a display of gross negligence here, that there are 2.1 million service members. And you're probably going to say, oh, like off the rails representatives have gotten death threats. Well, what about the 2.1 million service members? They have put their lives at risk. There is one commander in chief, and when you step outside of the chain of command and try to create the noise and chaos, that only helps our enemies.
Are you confident, though, Mr. Secretary, that every order that President Trump gives is in fact lawful, as Caroline Leavitt has said?
I am confident of that, and I am also confident that this was a complete mistake. They should retract it.
Hell yeah, they should. The ball's on these Democrats, not only to do it individually and say, hey, you guys in the military, I know that I'm just in my little Senate office and I've had this puffy political path, and I'm going to give you advice on how to function in the military. Not only just one singular senator doing that, but doing it as a coordinated video is so disrespectful to the military, like I've said in other videos. That shows you what they really think of military members. That they don't think there's a hierarchy. They don't think there's a chain of command. They don't think there's intelligence briefings or a long-standing tradition or well-established standards that go into certain decisions or orders. That's what they think about the military. They think it's just some random little political game, really, which a lot of times it is, by the way. There's a lot of politics in the military, allegedly. But they think it's just some game, that there's not this whole structure in place, and there's not commanding officers, and there's not life and death.
Okay, before I let you go, I have to ask you about your op-ed in the Washington Post this morning. A lot of folks going to wake up to that. You call for an end to the filibuster. In the past, Leader Thune has said that it's just not happening. There aren't the votes. Mr. Secretary, do you believe that you have enough votes, that the president has enough votes to get rid of the filibuster?
Well, we will see come January 30th, because that's the point of my editorial, is to put the Senate on notice that the Democrats kept the government shut down, and Ezra Klein in the New York Times took the mask off. He said this wasn't about health care. This was about stopping totalitarianism. The Democrats haven't been able to stop President Trump in the courts. They haven't been able to stop him in the media. So they had to harm the American people. 1.5% hit to GDP, $11 billion permanent hit. They don't care. So I believe that Senate Democrats, if Senate Democrats close the government again, that Senate Republicans should immediately abrogate the filibuster. You should ask Senator Klobuchar whether she will adhere to the filibuster and whether she will close the government again.
Just yes or no, though. Do you acknowledge at this point you don't have the votes right now to do that?
We will see. Can have them on January 3rd when we see this bad Democratic behavior.
It's SeanDaniel here. Thank you so much for watching. If you guys want to see another Trump economist genius take on a liberal host, check out this video right here, and I'll see you there.